It is Wednesday, July 19th, 9:30 a.m. We are going to call to order the Ottawa City Commission regular meeting. Could we begin with a roll call, please?
Mayor Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Commissioner Graves.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen. Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Perfect. I want to welcome everybody who's here today, and those that are in their bright colored shirts. We're excited to recognize one of your coworkers, all of our coworkers. And I also want to welcome individuals who may be listening on KOFO, or who may be watching this at a later time, or maybe watching this live. We always want individuals to be a part of the process, and so we appreciate when you are. We are here to help govern your town, your community, and we are here as representatives of you. So if you ever want to visit with us, we welcome you to do that, but we are always glad when you're part of the process. We will begin our meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray.
Well, holy and gracious God, as we come to you this day, we give you thanks for the opportunity to serve, to witness. We give you thanks for meaningful work and for your presence among us. We pray that your presence will be felt in this time together. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I'd like to thank Pastor Kathleen Whitmore from the First United Methodist Church for leading us in our invocation today. That moves us on to the next item on our agenda, which is our consent agenda. It includes minutes from the June 12th, June 19th study session, June 21st, and July 5th regular meetings, and the 26th special call session. Commissioners, you may want to note too that in the consent agenda we do have a little bit of a modification with an addition of 14.5. So we will make sure that we go through that, and part of that consent agenda will be to approve the agenda as modified. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next, regular agenda, public comment. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items on the agenda may do so as that agenda item is called. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items not on the agenda and that are under our jurisdiction of the City Commission may do so at the time which they are called upon by the mayor. Comments on personnel matters and matters pending in court or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and any presentation is for information purposes only. No action will be taken. Today we have John Cohen with the Chamber who would like to address us in public comment today. Mr. Cohen?
Honorable Mayor, Honorable Commissioners,
Good
Mr.
morning.
City Manager, I want to start by saying thank you for all the work and heavy lifting that you do for this community. You are all advocates, and I appreciate that greatly. And in so much that you've got some heavy lifting today with the hotel project in general, and I know there are major considerations and deliberations about how to finance that project, and we've watched that process unfold, and again I say thank you for the careful consideration you've given that. I want you to know the Chamber supports this project if you can find a route to get there. We think that that's a great way to clean up that corridor. It's an entryway to our city. It's something that people see immediately when they come off the interstate, when they come down Highway 59. So we support it, and we appreciate the conscientious deliberations that you have gone through to get to this point. And however the outcome is, thank you for all the work that you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We appreciate it. Are there other individuals in the gallery who wish to address us on public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication that they may have had that would influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Commissioners? Seeing none, we will move forward. New business.
Recognition and presentation of retirement plaque to Steve Greiner.
I am happy to hand the microphone off to Dennis Tharp, who is going to celebrate one of our wonderful employees here at the City of Ottawa.
Absolutely. Good morning, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. It is my honor and privilege to talk just a little bit about Mr. Steve Greiner. And he needs to come up here.
Yeah, you've got to stand up here.
I may need a prop. I'm going to do a little of the technical, things that we always talk about, and then we'll see where that takes us. But Steve joined the organization on September 1st or September 21st of 1998. He started as a journeyman lineman after finishing a 30-year career with Kansas City Power and Light. His technical skills and leadership abilities led him to a foreman position in June of 2003. And shortly after, in December of that same year, was awarded the position of superintendent, which he retired from. He has long been respected for his understanding and expertise with distribution systems. And beyond that, he has always been adept at staying in tune with the electric industry as a whole, with providing insight into substation design, transformer sizing, market participation, all the things that a lot of people don't think about. Technical abilities aside, I think the thing that defines Steve was his belief both in municipal utilities and in customer service. He's been an advocate for the last 20 years for this organization, and he has done things that, there again, most of us never see. Being called to somebody's house when they're out of power, and we could tell a million stories probably, but stories that lead from a customer that is totally disgruntled, to Steve being asked to show up. After he shows up, gets an earful at the door with a little time, a little calm explanation. Pretty soon he's sitting in the living room, and the next thing you know, the lady of the house brings cookies out for everybody. So
It's a little far-fetched,
but anyway, I think these are the traits that we as an organization look for in our folks, and I think Steve has been able to pass some of these traits along to people that are still here with us. So with that said, I would say we appreciate your service to this community, and we hope you have nothing but good times and a great life from here on.
I'm going to give it the best shot I got.
Yes, you will.
I would like to say one thing. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of the city. And the one thing that impresses me today is all these yellow shirts come. That's a blessing in itself. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Greiner, we cannot let you go without showing, or actually giving you a token of our appreciation. I know that the family that you have built here and the friendships that you have built here will be something that you will have for a lifetime. But please let us present you with a plaque for your service, and just a token of our appreciation for everything you've done for the City of Ottawa and for every one of our citizens. We appreciate it. So I'm going to read this really quick, and then I want to give it to you, and we have to take a picture, and we're going to have to post it everywhere, because we're so proud of you. So I hope you're okay with that, because if not, we're going to do it anyway. I'm just going to let you know that.
You're not going to let me out of here, are you?
No, we're not. In recognition of continuous service to the City of Ottawa, 1998 to 2017, this plaque is presented to Stephen Greiner as a memento of the city's appreciation. So, Mr. Greiner, if you'd like to come forward, I would love to present this to you. I know that the entire commission appreciates everything that you've done. Let's do this, and then we have to look over here and take that picture we were talking about.
on, John, quick.
Three. Now we'll take one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right. Put it in a place of honor. Thank you for your service.
I'm certainly.
Thank you. Want to give this to Mr. Bryan. Want to give this to you. Thank you so much. At the City of Ottawa, we have such wonderful employees, and we are always happy when we're able to lift up those employees and everybody who gives their time and talent to the City of Ottawa. So thank you, and thank you to Steve Grinder for his service. That moves us on to number 11 on our agenda.
Request for approval of resolution authorizing the execution of the Dogwood Project Agreement with Kansas Municipal Energy Agency.
This agreement will help maintain diversity in the power supply portfolio, City of Ottawa's power supply portfolio. The utility staff hopes to participate at a level of 5 megawatts. And I believe that Mr. Tharp is going to present on this matter while he sends the rest of his crew out to do the business of the city.
There you go. These guys are probably, good morning again. Right there. There we go. As we have discussed for actually several months now, we are in hopes to move forward with a continuation of our power supply. We have been looking at now for close to a year, actually, participating in the Dogwood Agreement. And so we talk about a little bit, why do we want to do the things, why do we spend the money on certain things, what moves us forward. And one of those is that the STAG, unit number 5, currently at the power plant, is nearing its useful life. It will still run, but oftentimes that is debatable, and so we end up spending considerable money every year to keep it functioning. So the probability is that we need to look at retirement of that unit. 5 megawatts of dogwood is what we are looking to purchase, and it provides both a capacity, which capacity is a requirement, for the city as an entity, and it also provides an energy price protection. The price that we purchase at now is locked in as long as we're ownership in this unit. The plant only runs when economical. It is not a baseload plant. This is dogwood that we're talking about. And it runs when it's called on by SPP. When it does run, the revenue generated by that plant is then distributed back to the owners of the plant, which you will see here later in the slide how that helps reduce overall costs. A big deal, especially with where the markets are right now, is this opportunity is here, and it's here right now. Prices overall in the market are relatively low. We're able to buy in relatively low. And by way of comparison, many of you were here when we had our Nearman PPA. Well, this PPA is just about half of what we were paying for the Nearman before. It gives us some flexibility. If we move forward with this, the STAG won't immediately be put out of service. We will be able to derate it and still meet our capacity requirements. but it gives us a chance to have some talks about what moves this community forward. You know, whether it be internal generation to replace the stag, or one of several other options that are out there that we as a group, we as a community need to sit down and talk about and discuss. Dogwood, this gives just some information about the Dogwood plant. It's located in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. It's gone through a number of transitions in the time that it's been there. Most recently, it was acquired by the Kelson Group. And if this purchase agreement through KMEA goes through, this plant will be majority owned by municipal entities. There would be about 7 different municipal entities that would own the majority of this plant at that point in time. One of the things that makes it attractive, but this is one of the things that is most important. Say it went through an engineering firm that we have a good relationship with. They did the due diligence on this plant. I think I had mentioned to you all before, this is not the first time we've looked at this plant. And the first time we looked at this plant, we would not have purchased because it just was not taken care of. It was not managed properly. Now, we believe that moving forward with this makes a lot of sense. The people that are in there doing the work now are doing a good job. They're maintaining the plant. The overhauls have been done. We're, in essence, buying into a new plant, you know, with the work that's been done. The purchase agreement will happen through Kansas Municipal Energy Agency, and they will become owners in the facility. They will issue bonds to pay the purchase price, and then we and 4 other cities will execute an agreement with KMEA for our respective shares of the Dogwood unit, which, as I mentioned before, for us is 5 megawatts. Those costs and revenues pass through to the cities. KMEA has only administrative costs in this, and they do not amount to much. Most of the costs are passed back. The Dogwood Power Management Group does control the plant operations. The thing that's noteworthy at that point in time is everyone that has ownership in this, which would be KMEA here, not necessarily us, but as our representative, KMEA would have a seat at the table to make not only operational but maintenance decisions and where things go. This talks about the third-party contractors at this point in time for labor, and then energy management services, which is all of the work with SPP is managed at this point in time by Westar. And as we all know, the KCPL Westar thing is ongoing, so who knows where that ends up at some point in time. This is the cities that are involved. I think it speaks for itself to the number of megawatts that KMEA would own for the cities at that point in time. And this gets us to some of the costs that I was talking about. You can see debt service and fuel and operating costs and where those numbers go. That's $609,000. It looks like a big number, and it is. But as I said before, the revenues, and this is historical, none of these numbers are set in stone. I want everybody to understand that. But historically, we would see about half of that come back in generation revenues. which there leaves us at a $283,000 number, an annual number, $284,000, around $23,000, $24,000 monthly. And like I say, that's about half of what we've seen purchase power agreements at before. This is, in our estimation, a very, very good deal. And with that, I would entertain any questions.
Dennis, you mentioned earlier to run the current stag, the operational or just the maintenance was nearly 100,000 or around that figure, but to operate it also is still it's got to cost more than that. Is it diesel run?
It's
operated?
natural gas.
Natural gas.
And the heat rate on the stag unit, quite honestly, can vary quite a bit. It's not a quick start unit. If we run it for multiple days, we can get to a point where the heat rate actually is not too bad. But we have no call to run it for multiple days. When it was first established, that's what it was. It was a base load unit. It ran all the time for the city of Ottawa. At this point in time, we can't even we can't put it in the market because we cannot get it up and running fast enough to meet any market needs. And so there again, it's become obsolete. We'll see where we go down the road, with some of these kinds of things. We believe that if, as we have these discussions, these ongoing discussions, that there is today some money to be made in the market with internal generation. Our reciprocating units are being called on a regular basis, and we're making money every time we run them. We've never seen a market like that before. And so we believe there's some opportunities here as we move down the road, and this is just kind of the first step to take a look at those opportunities.
Mr. Tharp, and I know that I'm cognizant that we're discussing dogwood. However, I do want to talk about the stag just for a quick moment. I mean, the stag has a special place in my heart because my grandfather helped build that. And but as with every project, its time comes to an end. And is it correct that if the stag were to break down, nobody's really making parts for the stag these days?
No, they have to be manufactured. Most everything. As an example, right now, as far as the control units of the stag, we're operating off of Windows 95. Paul keeps a couple computers back that still have Windows 95 on them because we can't upgrade those controls to really anything else. Well, I shouldn't say can't. We can't economically upgrade. And most everything that we look at on the unit, that's exactly what we run into. The costs are just prohibitive, to continue to drop money in the unit.
And if the public wasn't already aware, how many other stags in the United States are there?
There's one other in the United States. Hutchinson, Minnesota has a sister unit to the one that we have. There are a few other smaller units overseas, but it's a rare bird. Yeah, you don't see much of it.
Now, switching over to dogwood, so we're discussing a combination purchase agreement, and there are other cities, as you indicated, 4 other cities besides the city of Ottawa that are in this agreement. If one of these cities decides that, we really just don't want to have this, we don't want to exercise this right, is the agreement done?
No. We would probably take a step back. The agreement is at this point in time for the number of megawatts that we're talking about, but there's actually 2 tranches in this agreement. This is the first tranche. We believe that we want to be on that first tranche because we can use the capacity immediately. But there is opportunity past this. I think it's 6 months down the road. There's another tranche that kicks in at a higher energy rate. But it's very possible that there will be other cities that do participate at that point in time, beyond the 5 that you're looking at right now. Where that goes, to answer your question, really doesn't make any difference. This will move forward.
And then you had indicated a couple times during your presentation that the purchase price of dogwood is approximately half of what we were seeing. Is that half of what we purchased Nearman for? I want to make sure that I understand that. And actually, I want the citizens to understand that we are we're doing our due diligence when we're out there looking for baseload supply.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there again, I'll come back to the fact that we've been looking at that, doing the research on this for close to, well, actually more than that, probably close to 5 years. The dogwood plant's been there for a long time. As it's evolved, we've paid attention. We look at a lot of things. We look at solar. We look at wind. We look at all those things that could possibly make some sense for us. And we believe at this point in time with the things that we've looked at, and there are certainly other things out there. You know, there's some coal opportunity. There's some nuclear opportunity. None of those at this point in time run at the same price point. And two, I come back to the diversity thing. You know, this is a natural gas opportunity. Natural gas is the fossil fuel of choice these days. It's the cleanest burning, all those kinds of environmental things that we look for. This meets a lot of those. And so overall, staff recommends that this as the best opportunity that we've looked at. And there again, we've looked at several.
Commissioners, there are additional questions for Mr. Tharp? If not, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move that we approve the resolution for the dogwood agreement.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead. There you
Sounds
got
like
it.
there's a second and a third.
We're all of it.
I'm going to go ahead and say, all those in favor say aye at that point then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The next item on the agenda, item 12.
Public hearing to consider the establishment of TIF district at Princeton and I-35.
This hearing is for public comment regarding the proposal of establishment of a TIF project in the Princeton and I-35 TIF district for the Ottawa Lodging Project. I will open this hearing. I'm going to call first for the presentation, Mrs. Lee and Mr. Ellsworth, I believe, will both be discussing.
Good morning,
Yes, good morning.
Commissioners. We're very excited to be here this morning. This is one stage of a project that we're going to talk to you about through the course of the rest of the meeting. The first portion is really this public hearing for the tax increment financing project. We have a PowerPoint to do for that part. And some comments as we go along. But if you have a question, don't hesitate as we're looking at the PowerPoint to let me know. For the public's benefit, because we know most of the folks in the room know that a TIF is a tax increment financing project incentive, and it's intended by the statutes to promote and stimulate growth and economic welfare of the communities. It's for development, but it was originally really targeted for redevelopment, and the project we're going to talk about today is a redevelopment project. TIF pays for public improvements, and how it does that is it takes property tax revenue resulting from the redevelopment is used to pay for the public improvements involved in the project, which is what our policy says. You can use sales tax. We, in our policy, use property tax. So sometimes when the public sees stories elsewhere in the country or out of the Kansas City, Missouri metro, they may assume that problems they see there could occur here when they just hear TIF, they think they're all the same. And by our policy, we've been conservative in order to avoid some of the problems other folks have faced. These incremental increases come not only from the city's property tax revenue, but also from the county and the school district and any other. However, it does not include the 20 mills that's levied for the state for schools. And that funding means that the additional increment actually does contribute to the welfare of the community and the state. As an example, we have this illustration that shows the base, which is what we have today with some buildings out there. But for the purposes of illustration, this shows like $100 tax base. And then it shows what happens with the additional taxes that can be collected off of an increase in the property value that's done after the redevelopment. And it is that amount above the 20 mil and the base, as well as that 1.5 for Kansas. It's that in this illustration, the dark blue, which you can see is a significant portion of the property taxes that would be paid by the owner of the property. So, school districts are held harmless, and that's a good thing if we know that school finance is obviously a great concern across our state. As far as the process goes, it's quite a lengthy process, and we are well through it at this point. We started back in January with the public hearing relative to the redevelopment district formation itself. Then we had a series of notices, including publication, and then the ordinance that you adopted, creating a district. And from that point on, we're talking about the specifics of the project. And then what's remaining at this point really is this public hearing we're holding, the presentation that we are going to give, and then we have an ordinance for consideration to adopt a project plan, and then the redevelopment agreement, which is also on the agenda for discussion today. So this is the project. This is the district, this outer area that is bounded on the Prairie Spirit Rail Trail to the west, 23rd Street on the north, Princeton on the east, and again the rail trail or I-35 right-of-way on the south. That is the district. Outlined with the hatch here and in blue, if the color's coming through for folks, is the project that we're discussing. So there's still other projects that could come along, but this is the project we're discussing today for this southern 40% or one-third, between one-third 40% of the district. The proposed lodging project, as it is called, is for a street construction. Primarily, this was one of the reasons why, as you all recall, we formed a development district or a TIF district opportunity, is because I'm going to go back for just a second. Because there are a number of access points along Princeton here, and its proximity to I-35 presents some hazards. While there's a median, these right-in, right-outs, there's quite a few on a two-lane road. And in proximity to this interchange, based on the KDOT standard of safety and access control, would all be in violation of that. So anything we can do to improve, or in this case, eliminate access here and create access back here, first does us a public safety good, okay, from an access standpoint. Second to that, as you can also see in this illustration, there is a great amount of ground in this area that is undeveloped. That is another goal for us from a planning from a property tax sales, property tax standpoint, and really just from good planning, let alone taking full capitalization opportunity off of the trail. So those are two of the primary goals. In addition to that, we increase the opportunity in the area by a looped water line, other infrastructure as it's needed, site cleanup if you've visited the site, and as John testified this morning, there's opportunities for that site to look better to visitors to our community, and this is the primary visitor gateway to our community because of the restaurants and hotels and opportunities for folks outside the community. This is the primary visitor gateway. Demolition of some structures. In addition to that, there's some additional sidewalk work, improved stormwater drainage, landscaping, additional gateway amenities over time, lighting, and engineering things that will solve some of the needs we have out there. The lodging details, so what's the increment coming from, is the construction of a new hotel building that's 4 stories, 81 rooms, with a swimming pool, fitness room, and an enlarged meeting room, which was part of what was offered when they negotiated with the county, along with paved and lighted parking. In addition, they're creating a second tract, and that tract would have either a restaurant or a retail development on it, somewhere around 2,000 to 2,500 square feet, as well as additional parking. This is all on a tract the size of 5.1 acres. The total project costs from the application are $9.9 million. That's a significant project. Eligible TIF costs include some of what I alluded to, but the new King Street, which is an extension from 23rd Street, water line, as I mentioned, a looped water line, the stormwater improvements, demolition, site work, cleanup, land acquisition, and the professional fees. This is the layout of the site, what you can't see is this would be the extension of King Street with a cul-de-sac behind what is currently an H&R office building. There would be then the hotel at this site, a pad site. This illustration shows it as a restaurant with a drive-through, but a pad site. And this is an early illustration so that you can see the whole of the site. In detail, though, I wanted to show you the hotel site because that's the project that's been through the site plan process already and approved by the Planning Commission. And this shows the footprint of the hotel. Okay, there's a water line coming along here that loops back here to the back along the Prairie Spirit Trail. There's a sidewalk that comes along King Street, comes down, comes through the site, and then goes south with a new connection to the Prairie Spirit Trail, so that folks that want to access the trail for exercise or who want to have a longer walking path than they currently have or have some need to use the site, they can do that from our trail. And as you know, that's consistent with other site plans we've done in the area with connection to the trail. This is an image, not the prettiest one. I found the pretty one after I got down here. Sorry, Mike. This is an image of the hotel. If you've seen a Holiday Inn Express in any recent years, they are very similar. Very attractive buildings with multicolors, good windows, good breakup of a facade, and a 4-story, which is good from a land planning, site planning visual. And in addition, a canopy that then is on that south side towards where that sidewalk was that I showed you before. The Planning Commission had the task of considering this plan, this project, in relation to the city's comprehensive plan, and that's a requirement by the statute. They found that the hotel and restaurant comply with the zoning and the future land use plan. In addition, the redevelopment of this site further contributes to the comprehensive plan goals for gateway amenities and gateway redevelopment. And in addition, development of the full site, as I said, is a long-standing planning goal. And lastly, they passed a resolution indicating they believe that this project fit in conformance with the comp plan and thus the statutes for consideration of a project plan. In addition to the project plan and all the things I've mentioned before, our financial consultant prepared the required feasibility study. And this is to ensure that revenue will actually be generated and at a rate that we all understand what the expenses are relative to the revenue. And that is somewhere around a $3.6 million revenue on the property tax over a 20-year term, and that they would support the expenses. The feasibility confirms need, but suggests a limit on the term of 12 years. Now, just on that point, the feasibility's task is to talk about projects broadly. Currently, the feasibility recommends when we say 12 years, that's 10 years of full increment because it starts at the point as of today. Okay, what we have there now is our base. Those first couple years are in transition with removal of structures and construction of structures, but because property tax flows following, it's not prepaid. We don't get property tax in January based on a proposed development. We get property tax next fall for what's valued in January 1 of this year. So there's a lag is what I'm really trying to say. So those first 2 years are partials. Some of the discussion that we've had internally is whether it's appropriate for longer than a 10 full year term, and that's just something for you to discuss and we'll touch on a little bit later. But the feasibility itself suggests 10 full and 2 partials at this point. The basis for the need for incentives, in addition to the infrastructure needs, which are significant from our point of view as staff, there are financial needs for the redevelopment of the site. That talks about the total cost of this development, its room rates, the occupancy, and the net operating income that result in a substandard return on investment. In other words, just because they're spending all of this doesn't mean that the revenue can offset all those expenses. Okay? It has to offset expenses that include infrastructure, as an example. We talked about that. Other incentives requested and are further part of our discussion today are the Community Improvement District and Industrial Revenue Bond Financing and the Franklin County Transient Guest Tax. And our advisor recommends the gap be filled with a 97.5 pay-as-you-go TIF distribution rate over that proposed 12-year term. And I want to tell you that 97.5 allows for 2.5 of the city's expenses in order to go through this process annually when we make these payments. as well as what we are doing at this point. Okay, so that's what the feasibility study says. What I also want to tell you is what happens if we don't incentivize the project. First, the development won't materialize. Now, for some people, that may be okay with them. For us, we'd be very, very disappointed because we think it presents a lot of opportunities to the community. First and foremost for me as a staff person is I've been highly concerned about the traffic safety along Princeton now for some years. We unfortunately allowed some access points years and years ago. There has not been platted properly with good access points and easements and rights of ways, and it's resulting in less than adequate full-size development. But if we don't do it with a tax increment financing district as an example, and the street is funded by the city, let's just say we all agree that the street's necessary today and we were going to authorize a project, or you were going to authorize a project, that city street then would be paid fully borne by the city property tax payers, not the school district, not the county, but the city. So the stream would be removed, and it would be paid for all the taxpayers. If the TIF project is authorized, then in essence, the development pays those property taxes. The rest of the citizenry is held harmless from the cost of that street construction. However, they benefit from it. That's the benefit of a tax increment financing district. The community as a whole is improved. We have better and more improved streets and or other public infrastructure, as well as the nice aesthetics things that that are also a part of this project. The safety hazard would possibly remain then, because as you all know, property tax dollars aren't all that easy to come by right now. The gateway's not improved. The property value might in fact decrease, cutting our property tax revenue over the future, because all those buildings would continue to age. And it could in fact then delay other development, whether that includes proximity park or other things nearby. Those risks are out there. And so we're ready for questions or comments about this portion of our presentation, and then obviously you'll want to ask for other comments.
Commissioners, do you have questions for Mrs. Lee or Mr. Ellsworth at this time? None? Okay. We did vet this quite amount of detail on Monday. So if the citizen is watching and thinking, "Wow, they don't have any questions," that simply is not true. Many of our questions were answered on Monday. I would say most of our questions were answered on Monday. Next, I would call up Ottawa Lodging LLC, which is going to be represented by Mr. Golf and Mr. Works regarding their project that they are going to discuss with us today. Thank you for being here. Oh, look, good.
There it is.
Nice.
Mayor, Commissioners, good morning. I'm Matt Goff with Barbara Emerson Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of Ottawa Lodging, the applicant, and I'm joined by Mike Works, who's an owner and the manager of the project. Before you today is the approval of the Holiday Inn Express project, and I'm pleased that we do have another conceptual drawing to show you. Thank you, Wendy, for covering so many bases in your presentation. I could almost take mine in half. Nevertheless, I'll keep going. As she mentioned, you formed a TIF district recently, and this project is the southern portion of it. And on this site, there'll be an 81-room hotel with an oversized conference room and meeting space that will be made available to the city and the county and the school districts and other governmental entities for use at no charge pursuant to an agreement that this developer has entered into with the county. And we'd like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the county for their support of the project, not only with the approval of the TGT agreement that they made, but in other ways as well. So that's a difference from the prototype project. The hotel typically doesn't have that big of a conference room. It's an added cost that is part of this project and hopefully provides a nice public benefit to those looking for a place to meet informally. It does involve a new retail pad site. It is a $9.9 million project. It's a more expensive project than the typical hotel for all the reasons that you've heard, and it's one of the reasons why this project needs more help than than the typical project would. This project would provide a major facelift to your Southern Gateway. It would send a positive message to site selectors looking to locate in Proximity Park or elsewhere in the area. It calls for new public infrastructure that will improve safety and enable the full development of that corner. Once constructed, it will create revenues to the city and the county in the form of sales taxes, which are not part of the TIF. And once the pad site is built and operational, along with the hotel, that could represent approximately $100,000, 50 to the county, 50 to the city, more or less. That is yours from day one, or year 3 or whenever it's open, but it's not part of the TIF. This will enable more people to stop and stay in Ottawa. Those are people who are passing Ottawa by now, and when they come, they'll spend money here that they're spending in other places today. So you have a number of requests in front of you. I only have one speech for all of them. I'll give it one time. You're considering the TIF now, but there's also a 22-year CID project in front of you based on a petition you received last May for a 1% CID on the entire project. And today you received the paper copy of a second CID petition to layer in another 1% sales tax on the hotel site only. And then the request also includes a use of industrial revenue bonds, which I believe Mr. Ellsworth will provide some information on later. As you know, the applicant believes that a 20-year TIF with interest is what we need to fill the gap, the financing gaps, to make the costs of the project equal the value of the project. And we understand, based on some feedback, that it's unlikely that this commission's prepared to support a 20-year TIF project with interest, and instead has suggested that additional 1% CID layered on top of the hotel site. And after looking at the numbers, it does not appear that the additional CID and a 10 full year TIF term is the same benefit as a 20-year SID with interest. So there's still a bit of a gap. However, it's taken a lot of everybody's time and hard work to get here today. And you are considering today a set of very valuable and meaningful incentives. What we're asking you to do today is approve as many full years of TIF as you are prepared to. Obviously, the more you approve, the easier the decision becomes. But we will take your decision and look at it very, very seriously. We talk about full TIF years. It's been discussed a little bit already. We really don't have a hotel at full value until 2019. January 1 of 2019, there'll be, hopefully, a fully constructed hotel to appraise. And so the years you approve for the TIF, we would request begin on that year and thereafter. The 20-year term is a statutory maximum, and it starts today. But everybody wants to get to a yes. So we ask you to approve as much as you can. Along those lines, and if you'll allow me, I have some comments that pertain not just to the TIF item, but for expediency's sake, I can go through them all here now. We ask that you approve the CID petition before you, which was filed last May. We ask that you adopt a resolution of consent of intent to hold the second hearing on the new CID petition in August. We ask that you adopt a resolution of intent for the IRBs. Please approve the TIF plan. And you also have before you a resolution to adopt the development agreement. We need to make some changes to what you see. They are minor changes. We need to change the TIF cap from $1 million to $1.6 million to accommodate the new 1 cent TIF or CID sales tax that's being discussed. And there's some definitions in the agreement that need to be revised to acknowledge that there's actually 2 CID petitions being filed. And we ask that you approve a TIF term with as many years as you're comfortable. We hope that you're able to weigh the benefits of this project against its costs and approve a TIF term that makes it easy for the applicant to proceed and to proceed quickly. Thank you for the opportunity to invest in Ottawa and for your time and attention. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, do you want to, Mr. Thorpe, would you be so kind as to grab the lights for me so that we can, thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Goff? You can certainly ask any questions that you want. Please note that we will be addressing the CID, the IRB, and the development agreement in further items down in our agenda. So if you want to reserve your questions or comments at that time, you can certainly do so. However, you're welcome to ask any questions that you may have about his presentation. Seeing none, we will move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, during the public hearing, I would like to call for any other interested individuals or any other individuals in general who'd like to make a comment about this particular project.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, staff.
Morning.
My name is James Oltman. I'm the FCDC Director for anybody that doesn't know me who's watching or listening from outside this room here. As was discussed in prior presentations today and Monday, there's been a lot of things covered here, and in fact I can probably pare some of my notes down too because of how well it's been covered. However, I felt that it was important to have the opportunity to just highlight, for the public's sake, for people that haven't been a part of this process as much, that might be listening or watching, some of the additional economic benefits that have been discussed to some extent today. And just really kind of highlight what that means to the city, what that means to the residents, and the benefits that this project brings. This has been a long process that started not quite a year ago, right around a year ago. It's something that FCDC has been involved with from the beginning, and one of the things that we really did from the start is when this project was presented to us, obviously we were very excited about additional development within the community and the potential of development landing on that site. However, with that, we also, we were talking about a hotel project. Naturally, the question arose that, we have several hotels in town. There may be additional projects that could land on that site that could, fix some of the infrastructure challenges are there. Would we be better off with a different project versus a hotel? And that was one of the things that we wanted to look at. Is this a want or is this a need for the community? At that point, I went out and I started contacting our FCDC business partners, our members that invest in us, that bring in out-of-town people for business. And I've asked a large number of them. I asked, do you currently keep any of your guests in town? And unfortunately, it's not fun to admit, but I did not get one single response from any of the people that I talked to that said that they currently keep their out-of-town guests in Ottawa when they bring them in. They ship them up to either Lawrence or Olathe for a variety of reasons, which they have every right to make that decision. And so to begin right there, we obviously have a need for some of our business partners here in town to be able to offer a facility of this nature that would serve some of the needs that they have that are currently not being met. So that was one thing that we really wanted to take a look at. The second thing, as was mentioned, I believe by both Wendy and Matt, was the missed opportunity, so to speak, of travelers that are currently bypassing Ottawa. Obviously, as you know, with travelers, there is a certain segment of the population that is very brand loyal. They're points members, they're rewards members, they stay at the same hotel all the time, and it does not matter if they have to, drive an extra 20, 30, 40 minutes to get to a hotel that they are comfortable staying at. I distributed some numbers to you on Monday that kind of reflected, based off of, occupancy rates, the rewards members usage. You can figure out how many people are brand loyal that stay at a hotel. And then by using industry averages with average guests per room and average dollars spent per guest within the community, not including those lodging costs, you can calculate and get a good estimate of the number of people that, in this case, currently bypassing Ottawa and Franklin County completely because we don't have a facility of this nature within our community. It's a fairly substantial number, like you guys have seen over the course of the year. It is over 15,000 people that are currently bypassing us, and that actually relates to just over $1.2 million worth of money that could be spent in this community that is not. And so when looking at need, those are two main points that we wanted to highlight as far as, yes, there is a need for a hotel. Even though we have a few hotels here in town, several hotels here in town, this does fill a need where we currently have a void. As I mentioned on Monday as well too, and as John mentioned, pretty much as everybody's mentioned so far today, it does redevelop that southern gateway into town, and that's going to be a important component to the future marketing of Proximity Park. As you know, FCDC works very diligently on marketing that and trying to grow that for the community. And when we get to the point where we're going to have more site selectors coming in and visit, or we're going to have executives coming in and visiting that piece of property, as it was alluded to earlier, that intersection when they fly into KCI Airport and they drive down 35 and they take that exit and they stop at that stop sign, that is the very first impression of the community that they get. We've got the opportunity here in front of us to develop that, to really kind of rewrite the story, so to speak, the first chapter of the story that we tell these people of Ottawa and of Franklin County, before they even get to Proximity Park and see the real estate out there and the benefits that are out there. And so not only that, we've talked about the potential for affecting other development. I truly believe that this is one project that could serve as a catalyst to jumpstart the development along 59 to the south, as we've master planned out for, with the expectation that once Proximity Park starts to be built out and starts to develop, we're going to see that corridor of 59 start to develop out. As with everything, there needs to be something that lights that fuse. I feel that this project could be that. I feel like there is a lot of opportunity there. Because of this project, we've already had interest in other parcels in and around that area for future development. And so, like I said, I had much more. A lot of it's been covered already, and so, but I did feel that it was important from an economic development standpoint that the public understands that there is a greater benefit than what may be, involved in just the financial analysis that Mr. Kimmel was able to provide. So I can answer any questions if you guys have any questions for me.
Commissioners? I do have one question for
Yes.
you. Mr. Altman, generally, when the public hears Franklin County Development Council, what I often hear is equate that with bringing jobs and high-level jobs to our community.
Absolutely.
Higher paying jobs and a number of jobs.
Right.
So tell me about what do you know about the job creation with this particular property, and what are we looking at to benefit our community regarding jobs and employment?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a really good point because there is something unique about this project that should absolutely be highlighted. As you know, as was discussed Monday, we're talking about 8 to 12 jobs once the hotel is fully open. This doesn't include the 100 plus that will be employed with the construction of the hotel when that's underway. One of the stipulations that was written into the agreement with the county for their pledge of TGT funds was that all employees at this particular property, Mr. Works' project, be paid a minimum wage of at least $10, that nobody would be paid less than $10 an hour, which is, as you know, higher than what the current minimum wage is. It's by research that's been done, higher than what many of the employees at other hotels are currently making. And so that's going to have a positive effect on the community from a standpoint of not only does it provide higher than normal paying jobs for the type of job that's going to be provided, but it'll have a residual effect on some of the other jobs in the area to make them a little bit more competitive as far as rate of pay.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm not sure if you can address this matter or if this is Mr. Works or Mr. Goff that would do that, but regarding the construction of the project, if it were to go forward, tell me about your commitment to keeping some local contractors in employment.
Yeah.
I was assuming it would probably be you, but I thought,
Good call. Mike Works,
Yes,
Ottawa
hello.
Lodging from Lincoln,
Mr.
Nebraska. Thanks for having me up here today. Just real quickly, and thank you very much to everyone that's been part of this. The county's been great to work with, FCDC, Chamber's been great to work with, but most importantly, I'd like to point out Wendy Lee, who she said it had been a long process, and yes, it has. We've been working on this for a long, long time together, and without her, we would not have been able to put this together. So, first of all, thank yous for all of that. To answer your question, so two things. First of all, job creation. Total payroll will be someplace between $350,000 and $400,000 total for the project. So that's number one. The $10 an hour minimum wage, which is something we're happy to agree to. We don't start anybody less than that anywhere, so we're happy to do it here as well. Back to your construction question. We are actually in negotiation with a local builder to, I don't know if joint venture is the right word, and I say we. I'm not the contractor. I have a construction company that I work with a lot up in Lincoln. They're going to come down here. They'll be the lead contractor on this. They are not a self-performing contractor. They've got to find local subs to do their work for them here. So they will be using a number of local subs, whoever's available, which honestly, your construction's like our construction up there. It's hard to find subs anywhere. But they are also working on a JV type of deal with a builder here in town that's well known to you. I won't throw it out because that would be unfair to them. But we were working to do something like that down here as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Other parties who would like to address this public hearing for the establishment of the TIF district at Princeton and I-35? Yes, Mr. Ellsworth, please come forward. Introduce yourself. Or introduce yourself to the citizens who may not know you. We're glad that we see you often.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Tyler Ellsworth with the law firm of Kutak Rock, the city's bond counsel. And in that capacity, we not only assist and advise the city on bond issues, but we also advise on economic development matters, such as the incentives requested with this project. And I would add that our firm, and I in particular, we are bond counsel to Franklin County as well. And so we have also represented the county over the course of this project in connection with the request for the transient guest tax rebate. And I bring that up to emphasize that the county's portion of the requested incentives and the city's portion of requested incentives have been a collaborative effort. I've sort of been the common factor there between the city and the county. But this whole set of incentives, the CID, the TIF, the IRB, and the county's transient guest tax have been looked at in a comprehensive fashion to make sure that overall everybody on the city and the county side has been kept abreast of what the other offer is from the other jurisdiction so that we can tailor the total incentives for something that's appropriate to the project. I also wanted to add, Mayor, as you mentioned, on Monday's study session, there was much discussion, many questions, and certainly much deliberation about the levels of incentive for the project. And you've heard Mr. Goff say this morning that there's a gap that the developer is trying to close. We came out of Monday's study session not with a deal, an agreement between the parties, but with an offer from the city essentially to consider at least 10 full years of TIF incentives, a CID incentive capped at $1 million over a 22-year term, IRBs, and of course the transient guest tax from the county on top of that. Between the study session on Monday and this morning's proceedings, we have continued discussions with the developer, and we alluded to it on Monday, but just to reemphasize, and as Mr. Goff mentioned in his presentation, part of the approach at this point to bridge the gap that the developer is trying to reach is to add a second CID component to this project. And so the request from the developer and the request that staff supports, the commission entertained this morning, is to approve the TIF project plan, the first CID, the form of the development agreement, and also a resolution setting a hearing on that second CID, which hearing, if approved, would be set for August 16th. The deal would essentially be out there on the table while the developer can confirm that with the addition of that second CID, that gap is sufficiently narrowed so that he has investors that are willing to proceed with the project. And once we get that confirmation from him, hopefully prior to the August 16th hearing on that second CID, then the city would be in a position to sign the development agreement, which you're authorizing the signing of today, but we would essentially hold that, table it until we're sure that things are in final form. As Mr. Goff mentioned, there are just a couple adjustments to the form of the development agreement. Shouldn't be much different from the version you've seen, but that's essentially where we are this morning. So wanted to give you that update, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ellsworth? All right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Ellsworth. We appreciate it. Commissioners, I'm going to give one last call for any individuals who would like to address this matter during this public hearing for the establishment of a TIF district at Princeton and I-35. All right. Seeing none, we will close the hearing. And we will move on to item 13.
Request for approval of ordinance adopting a redevelopment project plan, lodging project plan.
This lodging project plan is for the southern section of Northwest I-35 and Princeton TIF District. In case you're just joining us, we've been talking about this for a while, and this is the same exact project that we have been discussing for the last 30 minutes. Commissioners, is there any questions that you have of Mrs. Lee, Mr. Ellsworth, or any other party at this time?
Mayor, I just appreciate your comments that although there's no or few questions here, it's not that we didn't have any Monday night. We've pretty well addressed everything if the community's watching. There's a lot of reading being done in the evenings at my home, early in the mornings too, going through this project, and I appreciate so much all the help everybody's made to make this effort to bring it forth in such clear terms, and so I appreciate that. But there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes, obviously, that no one has seen being done. So with that, I also want to say I appreciate Mr. Gott and Mr. Works on your commitment to our community. I know you've spent a lot of trips coming here to look this project over, and we appreciate your respect to this commission, your respect to the process, and very compelling arguments. So I appreciate all of that too. At the same time, too, we as commissioners, we have a fine line to walk. We have taxpayers standing behind us, watching what we're going to be doing. This November, they could fire 4 of us if they wish to, and I don't think any of us want that to happen, but we respect that process as well as guardians of the taxpayers. So we do have a difficult decision here. We all want this to happen, I feel. Everybody in this room in this community wants this to happen, but we still do have that fine line to walk and be cautious of. And hopefully we both can walk away with this with a win-win situation. I think we all can, and it's hopeful that we can move forward to this. I just want to make those comments to start off. And I will make that motion on item number 13 to approve this request.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion among commissioners? I do want to point out that we respect that Mr. Goff, on behalf of his client, that he did ask for the maximum amount of timing for the TIF district. And as you know, and as the citizens know, and certain can rewatch if they'd like, if they have nothing else to do and they want to just rewatch Monday's hearing, which, I mean, I've rewatched, and some others I'm sure have too. But we at this time are looking at 10 plus 2 halves, which we conveniently call 12. But it's because of the feasibility study that Mr. Kimmel actually did on behalf of the city, and really detailed conversation that we had among this group, that the financial modeling just didn't show that we would at this time feel like we could go any further than that. So that's my discussion point. Commissioners, do you have any other discussion? If not, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. All right, we move on to the next item on the agenda.
Request for approval of ordinance authorizing the creation of a Community Improvement District, CID, and authorizing the imposition of a CID sales tax.
The CID would be for the land site for a Holiday Inn Express and Suites and another pad site collection of additional sales tax within such district at a rate of 1%. Now, I believe that Mrs. Lee and Mr. Ellsworth will make a presentation on this particular item. I believe that Mr. Goff also has already addressed that in his matter. You can certainly do so afterwards if you want to come up and talk again. But Mrs. Lee and Mr. Ellsworth, if you'd like to address the City Commission.
We're happy to answer any further questions. As you said, as part of the opening, it imposes an additional 1-cent tax for any goods that are sold on that or on that tract, the entire tract, as well as services, which in this case are the services of renting a hotel room. If, just for the sake of the public, when we held the hearing on this 1 month ago, they may want to go back and look at that, but there are a number of community improvement districts around the state, and they would probably find, if they compared their sales tax receipts from a variety of places that they shop and do business, that they are paying a variety of collections, and that's because these kinds of districts are out there. We already have one community improvement district in Ottawa, and that's at the Price Chopper. So,
I do have just one quick question. Mrs. Lee, now, so if we adopt this, that extra 1 cent sales tax would also affect Taco Bell, so
no,
it
no,
wouldn't,
sir.
They're not in that.
Because of the process, you have to have a petition by the owners that want to be included, and the property owners are would just be for the hotel site and the proposed pad site for either a restaurant or other retail. If those businesses, as an example, want to do something, they may ask their own petition, and that's true for other businesses in the community. In fact, you could do one for downtown if they wanted to put something together. You adopted as a governing body about 2 years ago a policy that indicates how it is that people would need to go about informing their own community improvement district. I would say that the Community Improvement District does allow more in the way of expenses, more things that can be repaid. The expense still has to occur, but it has a broader use for the developer, which is part of the reason that those are a growing trend around the state.
So that's an important question, Commissioner, and one a lot of people ask. And just to summarize, in the CID, the business themselves are requesting to have a sales tax imposed upon them and them only, and the proceeds go back to them. The city or the county gets no portion of that. So that's an important distinction for the public to understand.
And lastly, that it expires. It's not forever. So
It
has a
expires
22
by time, or it expires by ceiling?
By statute, it expires by time. In the case when we get to discussing the development agreement, you can also put a cap on it, and/or time cap. But by statute, the longest that you can have a community improvement district is 22 years.
Commissioners, are there additional questions for Mrs. Lee or Mr. Ellsworth? Mr. Goff, did you want, or are you good? I mean, it's fine.
I have no additional comments, Mayor, but I would just say that as part of the deliberations today and understanding that you've got this CID petition in front of you from last May, if we could get some indication of your support for the next petition that you'll hear next month, that would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Understanding it's not a formal action on your part, but yes, thank you.
I believe that we're required by statute to go ahead and call that hearing. However, I think that that's...
Council.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, when you get to item 16 on the agenda, the development agreement,
We're going to discuss that.
I'll ask to give a recap for you of the total incentive package, and it will include the conversation about next month's hearing and the intent to go to 2% CID on the hotel itself. We'll talk about the cap request at that point as well. So we will recap all that and make a statement in the record of the city's intention regarding the incentive package for Mr. Works and his conversations with investors.
Any additional comments or questions for Mrs. Lee, Mr. Ellsworth, or anybody else in the room? If not, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve the ordinance in item number 14.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion among commissioners? If not, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes, motion carries. Next, that brings us up to item, what we're calling 14.5.
Request for approval of resolution providing for the notice of a public hearing concerning the advisability of the creation of an additional community improvement district, CID, within the lodging project and declaring the intent to levy a CID sales tax.
Now, I can understand how this may be confusing to average Joe citizen who is listening to this and they're thinking, didn't they just do the CID tax? Yes, we did. However, this resolution sets a public hearing for August 16, 2017 at 9:30 a.m. to consider the advisability of creating an additional CID and the imposition by the city of a 1% CID sales tax within the CID for the lodging site only. So, Mr. Ellsworth, would you like to address this matter?
Mayor, I'd be happy to.
Great, thank you.
As I alluded to in my remarks, and as Mr. Goff also indicated, this is a second CID, which encompasses only the hotel project. It does not include the retail or restaurant pad site. So in total, if this second CID is approved following public hearing on August 16th, then the hotel would essentially be imposing a total of 2% additional sales tax on taxable sales at the hotel, and the retail or restaurant use adjacent to the hotel would see a self-imposed 1% sales tax. So that's the distinction here, and this is part of the effort to bridge the gap that remained essentially between where the city was coming out of Monday's study session and where the development was coming from.
Questions for Mr. Ellsworth? I want to denote, in saying the same way, that the revenue in this project, it doesn't appear can be offset by the expenses. And so this is why we're looking at this particular manner. So that's why we're doing so. Commissioners, again, one more option to ask any questions. If not, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion that we approve this hearing on August 16th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any commissioners that would like to discuss?
I guess just one thing on this. I see that this tax we paid almost exclusively from out-of-towners or passers-by, whereas our CID at Price Chopper is partly been paid by our own taxpayers. So all the more reason I think that this is a good project and good plan to pay.
And I agree. I think that Mrs. Lee put it down really well. If you go spend time at any hotel or anywhere, actually, I would encourage you to do so in our area. There are different sales tax percentages wherever you shop and wherever you stay, and so this is not something odd. This is something that actually happens quite frequently. Commissioners, any additional question? All right, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes, motion carries. Next, item 15 on the agenda.
Request to approve resolution determining the intent of the City of Ottawa to issue its industrial revenue bonds, IRB.
The amount of the IRB, the industrial revenue bonds, would be $6,950,000 to pay the portion of acquiring, constructing, and equipping the commercial facility within the City of Ottawa for Holiday Inn and Express. I believe Mr. Ellsworth will be addressing this matter.
Yes, this is a resolution of intent for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds. It's not an approval to issue the bonds, but it's essentially demonstrating the city's willingness, subject to certain conditions, to issue industrial revenue bonds for the project. This is part of the incentive package and is a frequent request that we see in connection with development projects. You're familiar with IRBs maybe that afford property tax abatements and also a sales tax exemption on construction materials. Where IRBs are issued in connection with TIF projects, that tax abatement isn't available. So the IRB requested here is for the sole purpose of providing the developer construction materials for the project without the sales tax. Materials purchased with the proceeds of the bonds are exempt from sales tax, and so that's the benefit here. The bonds will likely be issued based on my discussions with Developers Council. If the project moves forward, the bonds will be requested to be issued probably in the next couple of months. So in the short term here, the bonds are not repayable from any form of taxes. They're obligations that are repaid by the developer. And those bonds would probably be outstanding for a period of 6 to 12 months, something like that. And again, it's just to facilitate the sales tax exemption, which is an additional incentive and part of the entire incentive package that makes this project feasible.
Mr. Ellsworth, is the city, or more importantly, citizens, are they left on the hook to pay these bonds if they are issued?
Not at all. There's actually a statutory prohibition prohibiting that taxes be used to pay principal and interest on the bonds. The bonds are not payable from taxes.
And is there anything within these bonds that would encourage or require the contractors to purchase locally?
Not to my knowledge, and that's something that was addressed a bit earlier on one of the other agenda items, and I think those conversations would be outside of the IRB structure.
Okay. Additional questions for Mr. Ellsworth? If not, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner,
I'll make the motion for item 15.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion among commissioners? If not, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Kaler?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Ellsworth. All right, item 16 on the agenda.
Request to approve resolution approving the execution and delivery of development agreement.
This agreement is with Ottawa Lodging LLC as a developer to build a Holiday Inn Express and Suites limited service hotel containing 81 rooms in the city of Ottawa. Now, our agenda does say that Mrs. Lee and Mr. Ellsworth will be addressing this matter, but I believe City Attorney Mr. Finch will actually recap the entire development agreement for us to begin with.
This is the business end of all of the things that you've just done. This is the authorization to enter into the actual development agreement, which contains the terms for all of the incentive package that's been discussed to this point. This is because of, it's a little unorthodox in that your developer is going to go back and talk to some investors after today's meeting, after the details have been set, and then come back to us with a final thumbs up or thumbs down on the proceeding of the project. So what you're doing today is saying, over the next 45 days, you're authorizing city staff and the mayor to enter into this agreement should we get a thumbs up that the project is going forward. And the terms that we, as we understand them today, would be the following. The TIF would be a 10 full and 2 partial years. And when we talk about the partial years, understand that there's 2 years where this project is under construction and not fully operational, and the county appraiser will not have a full fair market value on that construction upgrade while it's underway. But it does create an increment over the bare ground that's there now, and this allows a developer to recapture that increment, whatever it may be, and then 10 full years after construction is complete and the first assessment takes place. So the best way to think about that is in 2019, the hotel is fully operational. We get the first fair market appraisal from the county appraiser, and it's 10 years beyond that the increment will be used to help repay the developer for the improvements that have been made to that point. Okay? You heard Mr. Goff talk about their request, which is he calls it a 20. That's really a 18 and 2 partial years, and you're giving a 10 and 2 partial years. So if you want to talk apples to apples, that's the way to think of it. Oranges to oranges would be they're asking for 20, you're giving 12. So the other incentive there is the CID. And that is right now at 1% on the whole site, You have just passed the resolution to have a public hearing to add an additional 1% to the hotel itself. And I would say that I would ask any of you not to preview your vote, but if there is anyone who has a concern about that or believes that that's something they cannot support, to speak up today. And otherwise, the developer will be relying on the fact that we intend, and the city's offer to this point has been, to approve that additional 1 cent for the hotel itself after we've gone through the public hearing next month. And that is a total of 22 years, and that has a cap of about, the request is for a cap of $1.6 million. So when $1.6 million has come in on the CID, it would expire. Or if 1.6 has not come in over 22 years, it would continue until 22 years and then expire. That is up from the cap of $1 million that we had originally when it was 1% on the whole area out there. So that the estimate is that we'll collect about $1.3 million over the life of it. Now, if it turns out that it's better, if the area grows, there's more folks staying there, sales tax collections increase, they can collect up to 1.6 on that. The IRB, that is what you just adopted. That allows for the sales tax exemption of construction materials. That's estimated to be somewhere around $380,000 in benefit for the sales taxes not paid on the construction materials. And then finally, the county has a transient guest tax agreement that is a rebating of transient guest tax to be paid, and that's worth about $600,000. So total, we believe the TIF will bring in somewhere around $1.6 million, CID $1.3 million, IRB $380,000, transient guest tax $600,000, total of $3.88 million on the city side and county side for incentives, and it could be as high as 4.1 if we reach the cap on the CID over time. So those are the provisions. The transient guest tax, as I said, is kind of outside, but I wanted to give you a flavor for the full value of the incentive package being offered here. And that's a direct result of the cooperation of the developer and his counsel, who have been good to work with and have been working tightly with Wendy and with Tyler on our side. And I would just echo the comments that all have made about the good working relationship and the desire to get the project here. And if Mr. Ellsworth has anything else to add, let him do it. But otherwise, that's what we're asking you to approve today, is the resolution to enter into that agreement sometime in the next 45 days if we get the thumbs up. And we can sign that agreement after your public hearing and after you've taken action on the new CID for the additional 1 cent next month, so the developer has full assurance.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate for that recap. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Finch? Okay, I will entertain a motion to execute the delivery of the development agreement, if there is one.
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion. We approve item 16.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion among commissioners?
Just once again, I just want to appreciate Matt and Mike, both of you being here today. And I'm a capitalist too. I understand rate of return on your investment. And I know with your LLC, I'm assuming you have other members you're responsible to and for, and you have to answer to them if something goes wrong. Here, I agree. I totally understand that. But I appreciate just your openness and your vulnerability and all the numbers you presented to us. I love numbers, and so it's been good to be able to go through all those and see what we've got. Tyler does too, I think. And so, but I appreciate all your effort, and hopefully we can come to a peaceful and a very profitable resolution for both of us. Thank you. Thanks.
I may also want to talk in non-banking terms. Commissioner Skidmore does such a good job in doing that, and Commissioner Jorgensen is not here today. He's going to be upset that he didn't have that chance to really address that. But in just layman's terms, I want you to know that we want you here. Yes, we want you here. We thank you for working with our staff, and we look forward to a bright future between your company and our city.
Great.
So, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Kaler?
I do vote yes. Motion carries. Well, if we had only done something today at our meeting, I bet our city manager wants to really give us something to think about, right?
Yes. This is important work, commissioners. And it takes the developer, takes city staff, it takes financial counsel to really understand this. And this is what your responsibility is all about. In the end, it's your responsibility to approve and say, is this good for the community? Is this good for the taxpayer? And does this take us down the road to achieve what we want to do? So I want to tell you, good work. Thank you. Thank you for the time and effort that you put into these things. You serve the citizens well, so thank you. Two things. One of them is we have our joint meeting at 290 district offices today at noon. And please note, July 27th is Proximity Park groundbreaking ceremony. It will begin at 10 a.m. And we made a change the other day that we haven't noted on here yet, but we will. We're actually going to hold all of the festivities there at that site instead of trying to manage two sites at the same time. And Mike said that his bank would supply as many sun umbrellas as what we needed.
Yes.
My.
How nice of you.
At least one. We can get close.
Does that complete your report?
That is it.
Thank you. That moves us on to reports by city commissioners. I'm going to begin to my left, your right.
I'll call to order
Commissioner
the
Crowley.
Franklin County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday,
Commissioner
July
Skidmore.
12th.
Commissioner Graves.
No report.
Okay. That moves us on to a report by the mayor. I just want to applaud all the individuals and all the working parties that are a part of this. It didn't happen overnight, and it certainly takes many hours. I know that sometimes the citizenry thinks that this stuff happens really quickly. That is the furthest from the truth. But we are happy about the movement that has been made today. I do want to point out one of the things that is very close to my heart. On the 29th, which will be not this Saturday, but next Saturday, we do host our annual play day, and that is not just play for kids. We want everyone to come out and enjoy themselves. And it's just one of those opportunities to enjoy our town, but to have just a segment of play. And so we would invite you out from 10 to 1 at Forest Park. So we hope to see you there. Forest Park Play Day on the 29th of July. And then we do actually have another really important day. If your community or your neighborhood has not signed up for to be a National Night Out party site, we have for new citizens, for individuals who might be saying, what is National Night Out? National Night Out is an opportunity for us to host block parties here in our community. We always have a great number of block parties that are hosted here, and it's an opportunity for you to just celebrate summer with your citizens. I know that our number builds every single year. Chief Butler, do you happen to know a number of block parties that we have this year already scheduled?
The latest count was 18.
18 block parties. Excellent. And so we will certainly accept more block parties at this time, correct?
Yeah.
And how would one do that if they want to schedule their block party? I'm going to call Chief Butler up here to let us all know how, if you're interested in celebrating summer with your citizens that live around you, how would you do so, Chief Butler?
Again, the date is August 1st, starting at around 5 o'clock, going till about 9 p.m. We have 18 communities. If anybody's interested in participating, they can contact Ron Hughes. He's our volunteer coordinator at the police department. His phone number is 242-2561, or they can email him at rhughes, Hughes, at ottawaks.gov, or they can call me.
And Chief Butler, why would it be important for them to register? I mean, if they just want to have a block party, great, but there's other incentives to register their block party, correct?
Yes, we create a schedule. This doesn't just include city staff and officials, also county entities participate in this. So if we create a schedule, we can ensure that members of those respective staffs are able to visit every single block party. They won't see everyone, but they'll get someone.
Will they see a fire truck if they register?
If they ask for one, we'll try to get one there.
Excellent.
A lot of times we do use on-duty staff, so if there's an emergency or a call for service, sometimes we have to skip over designated stops. We try to avoid that as much as possible.
Excellent. It is always a great night, and it's always nice to see citizens out in their respective neighborhoods.
Yes, I agree.
Excellent. Thank you for giving me, I know I didn't call upon you before or let you know, but I appreciate you giving us kind of a 411 on National Night Out.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Announcements. We do have our luncheon today for City, County, and School Board at noon at the USD 290 district offices. We have our study session, as we do every single Monday, at City Hall at 4 p.m. Proximity Park groundbreaking ceremony begins at 10 a.m. on the 27th of July. Play Day, like we talked about earlier, is on the 29th of July. The 31st of July is a study session, and National Night Out is the 1st of July. The 1st of August. And Airport Day is coming up. It's right down, actually, it's just a month away for Airport Fun Day, 8 to 1 at our airport. So is there anything else to be brought in front of the commission today? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned.